to the right, caught over the middle, and into.
He's at the 45. Are you kidding? He's gonna go!
Brady gets hit, the ball is out, and Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you check us out on Twitter first at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the page, make sure you check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout tonight's show, make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best place to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up with myself and Scotty and all the other great shows here on DSM. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. Week 17 is officially underway in just a few hours with Dallas and some form of the Tennessee Titans. I guess we'll talk a little bit about that one later on in the show. We're also going to get to our updated power rankings as the season starts to come to a close. We're going to talk about Monday Night Football, Chargers clinching a playoff spot for the first time. And I forget how long, but it's been a while for and Justin Herbert's first time as well. Nick Foles gets to start in Indy with Jeff Saturday. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about a lot of other interesting conversations throughout tonight's show with the quarterback position, Scotty. You have Carson Wentz getting his job back for the moment in Washington. You have Derek Carr being benched and Devontae Adams, basically devoting an Instagram post and social media post about the man. So a lot of interesting talking points, but how are you?
I am doing well, man. Happy Thursday to you. We're back at our weekly Thursday night football show, and the Thursday night football. We usually do complain about the Thursday night football matchups, but tonight is going to be even more.
Yeah. Tonight's the epitome.
Less intriguing. Yeah, exactly. It's the epitome of that. So yeah, I'm doing good, man. We're getting to the end of the work week. Another holiday weekend coming up, so that should be fun. But I'm doing well, man. How are you doing? How's the holidays going?
This is always a weird week, right? It's probably the strangest week mentally you'll hear. The break between Christmas to New Year's, right? Like it doesn't make sense. It feels like you're in this weird like flux, like time, like people, since it's a weekend as well, like you have the day after or two off and then you go back to work. And then like, I know some people are going to have a half day's worth of work on Friday. So we'll see, man. And yes, sir, go Titans tonight. Although I don't know how to put this.
Whatever's left of them.
Whatever's left of those Tennessee Titans. I don't think they're getting the job done tonight, man. But let's start with Monday Night Football. Justin Herbert and the Chargers clinch a playoff spot over the Indianapolis Colts, who decided to go with Nick Foles. We drank the Kool-Aid. We love Nick Foles here in the city of Philadelphia. We're trying to put this over in yards, and man, it was a struggle to watch all night long. Whether it was him getting hit, the interceptions back and forth early on in the game, his decision making, and I talked about this with Phil essentially on Tuesday morning on Trending in the AM, and we love Nick Foles here. He's a walking, living legend here in the city of Philadelphia. But for all those people that were so excited to watch this form of Nick Foles play on Monday night, for the portion of our Eagles fan base that would love to have him back in a backup role, in a backup setting, can it stop? I don't know what more evidence and proof you needed. Like, here's the problem. Some people forget that even Nick Foles that caught lightning in a bottle was half a decade ago. And for whatever reason, Jeff Saturday thought to himself, hey, let me bench Matt Ryan. Let me skip past the rookie we drafted in Sam Ehlinger, and let me go directly to 62-year-old BDN and see if he has any matchup in the tank. But like the Titans are doing tonight, the Colts really have nothing to play for except outside of a higher seed. So, man, what did you think of this slot fest?
Yeah, I mean, the Nick Foles thing, yeah, you're spot on there. It's time for Nick Foles to hang it up, man. I felt bad for him, right? I just felt bad watching it play out the way it did. Him getting, like, smashed and then, like, the errant interceptions. And, we get through that game, and I know I texted you. I was like, how long is it going to be before this dude gets benched?
It's bench for
They
real.
didn't bench him. They didn't bench him, right? So, like, my guess is they're tanking, man, and maybe they think that Nick Foles gives them the best chance of getting a better draft pick. I don't know
Sure
if
looked
that's
like
really
it.
the case, but that's what it looked like, right? As far as the Chargers, congrats to them for clinching the playoff spot. Obviously, it's been a while for them. First time Justin Herbert. I'm interested to see Justin Herbert in the postseason just to see what he looks like. But I'm still not sold on the Chargers, man. Like I didn't come away from this game saying, man, the Chargers really bounced back and ran away with this playoff spot. Like the score ended in 20-3. It didn't feel like a 3-possession game to me, right?
Can I tell you why? They're boring.
They're boring. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
They shouldn't be. They have they have one of the premier top gunslinging young quarterbacks in this league. They have a nice 1-2 punch. Keenan Allen is severely underrated. You have a back in Austin Eckler who you can use, out of the run game as well as in the pass game. When healthy, they have a good They're boring. There's nothing fun or entertaining about them. You watch them. You mentioned it. The score ended 20-3. It was a one possession game for basically the entire 2.5 quarters to start the game. Why? Because they couldn't put Nick Foles away, even after he kept gift wrapping you possessions. They're literally a boring ass offense to watch, dude, and they shouldn't.
And you look at the last 3 games, like Justin Herbert hasn't thrown a touchdown. Like that's kind of crazy when you have a quarterback the caliber of Justin Herbert, and you just can't get the ball in the end zone through the air. It's odd to me, man. It all points to coaching in my eyes. Like every time I watch the Chargers, I'm just, there's just something off here. There, like you just read off the talent. He has his wide receivers back. Everything's flowing right. Keenan Allen had over 100 receiving yards in this game. Austin Eckler had 2 touchdowns, and you leave the game still feeling underwhelmed by the Chargers. And I don't know if that's the consensus on that feeling, but it just feels, you look at the win against the Titans, and they only win by 3. You give them credit for it because, they're biting for a spot in the playoffs. They ultimately did secure their spot in the AFC playoffs. But you only beat the Titans by 3, and we've seen what the Titans look like. The Titans just lost to the Houston Texans, right? So, like, we saw what the Eagles did to the Titans, right? 35-10. So the Titans were on a downhill spiral and still only lost to this Chargers team by 3 points. And then you come out against Indianapolis where, like you said, Indianapolis tried to gift wrap this to the LA Chargers. I'm sitting there sweating because I'm going against Justin Herbert in Dynasty playoffs. And this man goes for 6 points. He has an interception, a fumble in the game. Just still something off there in LA for the Chargers.
Their head coach is getting his hip thrust in before the game on the field in front of everybody. You know what it is? I'm not trying to really be a jerk about it, but when I say boring, like, my thoughts on Justin Herbert coming into the year, I forget if I had him ranked 1 above Joe Burrow or 1 behind Joe Burrow. They were my 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 respectively. Yeah. But that's the problem, right? Like Justin Herbert is this gunslinging young talent, but he's not Joe Burrow, right? He's not as fun as Joe Burrow. He's not as flashy. He's not as cool as Joe Burrow, right? Keenan Allen, possibly top 10 receiver, severely underrated. You mentioned it. Double-digit catches, over 100 yards. Don't feel like and there's no points for style. That's not what I'm trying to get at. It means nothing that they're boring. I'm just telling you, like, when you watch a Chargers game, that's why. Because, like, Keenan Allen isn't Jamar Chase or DeAndre Hopkins, Vontae Adams. He's a very good receiver. He's not them. Justin Herbert's not Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Austin Eckler, one of the most dynamic runners we have in the game. Fantasy scoring leader, right? He's not Dalvin Cook or Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry, right? So there's just something about the team, like this aura that they give off, where they're just not entertaining to really tune into, and they're
one-dimensional. Right? They're one-dimensional. That's the problem. Eckler is so good, but like they just can't get anything going with the run game. They're one-dimensional, and I just don't. I don't know. I don't see it, right? Like somehow they got to this playoff spot. Before the season, right? I had them as Super Bowl contenders.
Me too.
But like throughout the season, I've just been waiting for
they haven't lived up.
Yeah, they haven't lived up to it, man. You look at Mike Williams, right? Where's the big play? Mike Williams down the field. Like And he did have what 70, 80 receiving yards in that game, but still, like that's what I mean. These guys put up the numbers, but it's still you leave this game with a 20-3 score. No passing touchdowns for Justin Herbert. What actually happened in this game?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
not to mention, like, even if they win out, they win the next 2 ball games. That puts them at 10-6, I believe, on the season. They're 8-6 right now.
Yeah.
That would mean they have won 3, 4. That means they have won 5 or 6 in a row. So think about that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
they're starting to heat up. They're playing better, but like ultimately, when I had them beating the Chiefs for the regular season AFC West title, 10-6 was never going to get that done. And even if you win 5 in a row to end the season, that's your end goal, 10-6. So that's why it just feels like a roller coaster of a season. They have not lived up to expectations. They are finally starting to get healthy, like we said, with their wide receiver group and all that. So we'll see what they can continue to do into the playoffs. We mentioned Nick Foles obviously getting the start for Indianapolis. That's not really the storyline, though, around the NFL this week. The storyline around the NFL are 2 other and maybe a couple more quarterback situations and quarterback controversies to look into, man. So I want to ask you straight up, which one do you find more interesting or more of a problem? Is it Carson Wentz getting the start again in week 17 with a playoff? Like that's the part about Washington that's so intriguing. The playoffs are still on the line. Washington's sitting in that 7 seed.
Yeah.
Now it's there for Wentz to go kind of be this hero, right? Heineke starts to struggle again. He comes in. Maybe he gets them in the playoffs. Reversely, you have a team that in the same division we just spoke on with the Chargers, disappointed, underwhelming, with too much talent, benching Derek Carr. And I think you and I would both agree. Like, listen, he was horrible Christmas Eve night. He comes out. What did they score against Pittsburgh? 10 points.
I think he had 3
he throws 3 interceptions in the second half. He was not good. Don't get me wrong. Derek Carr is not the problem with the Las Vegas Raiders. But so which side do you think is a more interesting storyline? Wentz in Washington or Carr benched in Vegas?
It's got to be Carr in Vegas, and I like what you said there about Carr and it not just being all on him. Now, obviously, he's kind of fell under the wagon, right? The wagon was falling down; it was out of control, and he kind of fell off of it over the last few weeks. But the one thing that you can say, and somebody laid this out on Twitter. We've seen Derek Carr be good without Josh McDaniels. We have not seen Josh McDaniels be good, right? So, like, we haven't seen him be good as a head coach. So, like, when you look at those things, you look at the relationship that Davante Adams has with Derek Carr. You just gave Davante Adams this mega deal, and you traded a bunch for him as well, on top of giving him the mega deal as a wide receiver. Where do you go next? You can't tank. Like, you're not in. You have too many wins that you're going to get like a chance at a top quarterback in the draft. So, like, where do you go there? Do you trade Derek Carr? What's Derek Carr's value? If you trade Derek Carr, do you have to? I feel you have to trade Davante Adams, right?
That's what I was going to say. What does Davante Adams want to be there for? The sole reason he's here is because of your quarterback, because of that relationship and that friendship that they've had, and he left possibly the greatest talent of our generation and multiple NFC championship appearances in the previous years to come play with this dude specifically. And your thank you to possibly the best or second best, third best wide receiver in the game right now is to bench that man. Why? Because you don't have the stones to admit to your mistake in the head coaching hire. That's the part that makes me laugh, right? We all know Josh McDaniels can't go anywhere, Scotty. Why is that? Because they don't even have enough money to release him and then bring on another head coach. They don't have it. But let me ask you, how do you have the money to just eat the dead cap salary you're going to have Derek Carr if you move on from him? How are you going to explain to keep Davante Adams here and not have to trade Davante Adams after paying him and giving up all that stuff to your Derek Carr is not here? If you just manned up and said, hey, the head coach goes first, then I think you'd be fine. Because in every situation, if you look back, we talked about this earlier on in the season, what is always the first domino to fall? The head coach, right? Coach goes first. He's more disposable than your franchise quarterback, the guy you pay the most money on the field to. In what world is the first year head coach with a bad track record less disposable than the quarterback that brought you Devontae Adams? I think Vegas is in so much trouble, dude.
Yeah. And that's like I'm looking at it from the other side of the other side of things, the other perspective in this case, and it's like, if you don't change, like, what could you change, like, aside from head coach and quarterback, in this situation? And it kind of does. It seems like Derek Carr is being scapegoated. But
They
maybe
just
that
made
opens
the
the door.
playoffs and won a
Maybe
playoff game last year.
maybe that opens the door for Aaron Rodgers to Las Vegas. Maybe they can make a swap.
Could you imagine? No, but
it's chaos, man. That's what we've been
I'll
talking
tell you what
about
else is
with the Raiders. I mean, the Broncos are in a not as like Derek Carr at least has some tenure with the Raiders. Russell Wilson doesn't have that, but they're in similar situations, as in these are quarterbacks that are at their lowest value. You know what I mean? What are you going to do with these quarterbacks? No, I didn't see what Judy said though.
Coming to his QB1's defense.
What he
Coming
said?
to Russ, calling him the hardest working, best teammate he could ever ask for, best leader he could ever ask for to go to battle with. Because apparently something about Russ, the report, whatever it was, that he got an office put in or something, I forget. And Judy basically came to his defense. So that was funny. But speaking of that, like, that's a problem in Vegas as well. Adams puts out the social media, the Instagram post about Derek Carr. Derek Carr isn't even with the team. He had to step away from the team because so he would not be a distraction. Because either he or other players within the organization are unhappy with the decision. That's a problem. And I think it's not funny because, like, I'm trying to think about how to phrase this. I don't care about the situation, but I do like Derek Carr. And when I feel so deeply that he's not the problem, it actually, like, aggravates me to see how it's playing out in Vegas. Like, I have no connection to Las Vegas or the Raiders at all, but I know, and you know, who needs to go out of that duo for things to start trending in a better direction. And you know it's going to go the opposite direction. And you're throwing out the word scapegoat. That's all he's going to be by the end of next season.
I just, I think there is a side of things on the Raiders side where you look at the Raiders, it just feels like this has been coming to a head over time. Like, every single time the Raiders are in a bad spot, it's Derek Carr that gets thrown under the bus for it, and it's him that's the problem. So it's like Devontae Adams, like, distracted us that was ever a thing. Like, because Derek Carr kind of had a hand in bringing Devontae Adams to the team. We thought maybe Derek Carr is stable in this organization, but once again, things go south, and they're blaming Derek Carr again. And I think this is the last straw. This team is going to have a complete overhaul. You saw what Josh Jacobs said, as far as what his future beholds and what he's sick of dealing with in Las Vegas with the Raiders organization. So I think they're going to see a lot of turnover this offseason. We're going to see a completely new Raiders team, aside from the head coach, most likely.
And that's the problem.
Funny thing about I heard Travis Kelce say this on the New Heights pod for the Broncos. It's like, Broncos country, we tried. Broncos country, we tried.
That's it, bro. Division
rival. Oh man, division rival too,
dude.
and they're about to play them this weekend. Oh my goodness, it was hilarious though, and it's so true because he just had all this hype coming into the season, and he dug it deeper, right? Like, Russell Wilson's personality digs that hole in that those expectations even deeper with the things that he says and does. So just to see it play out like this, it's incredible.
To see how this division that had the highest of hopes heading into a season that I could ever remember a single division having with 4 teams turn out to be an absolute slop fest with we should have just seen it coming. What's the one consistent that's just going to be sitting there in first place at the end of the year when the dust settles and all the crap gets out of the way? Vegas, no, they're a train wreck. Russell Wilson in Denver, no, even more of a train wreck. Head coach fired already, first year. Chargers, yeah, they're in the playoffs, but 8-6. No, here we are. The 11-12 win, Patty, Andy, the franchise, right? Like just the pedigree. Like we all sat here like maybe this is the year. Some people were like, oh, maybe they finish in third place. Yeah, right. Third place. Gee, oh man.
So with
What were we
the
thinking?
Wentz thing with the Commanders, man, the benching of Heineke.
It's funny.
How do you feel about this? Because the way I look at it, I get it in a sense. You need to see what Carson Wentz can do, right? Like over these next 2 weeks, you can see what Carson Wentz has before you go into the offseason. If he can get you to the playoffs, then so be it. You see him in the playoffs too. If not, then you know Carson Wentz nor Taylor Heineke is the answer. And Taylor Heineke, obviously, he's struggled. He's struggled the last couple weeks anyways. Couldn't get a W against the Giants 2 times in a row, and then obviously struggled against the 49ers. But yeah, that's the funniest thing about this. And I think there's zero chance that it happens. Just because if the Commanders were to make the playoffs, that's probably the one team. I don't know. I can't say that I don't see them beating the Vikings. Like, no, none of those teams in that spot are going to be the favorite to me. And I know a lot of people are picking the Vikings, similar to the Cowboys, to be a first-round exit. The Commanders are one of those teams that kind of don't scare me for the Vikings, in a sense. I look at some of the other teams like Detroit. We've already seen Detroit beat them. We know with Green Bay, division rival. The New York Giants, Seattle is probably in that same conversation with the Commanders. I just don't see it. But how do you feel, Carson Wentz? Is it the right move? Do you think that it's the right move as far as like where you're going and what you're trying to do with this team?
I think it's 100% the correct move. B, you asked me, is it to see what you have in Carson Wentz? No, I don't think that's it. I think it's because you know what Taylor Heineke can't do. It's not what can Carson Wentz do. It's what Taylor Heineke can't do.
That's
we
fair.
said this when the move was made to when Wentz got hurt and then Heineke kept the job because they won a couple games in a row. They went on a little bit of a streak. Don't get me wrong. Like Taylor Heineke kept them in a playoff spot. Like without him, they're not where they are. Wentz was struggling before the injury, turning the ball over. Obviously, we faced him in week 3. He was a train wreck that game, right? But you know what the ceiling is with Taylor Heineke. You've had the last 2 years, 3 years to know what the ceiling is with Taylor Heineke. Now, maybe it's worse with Carson. Maybe Carson goes back and he's still a head case and he's turning the ball over and he's taking ridiculous sacks, right? Holding on to the ball for too long. Or maybe he comes back for 2 weeks and has a flash in the pan and a flash from the past, Carson Wentz, where he's throwing for 330 and he's got 3 touchdowns to no interceptions and they win a game, right? Yeah. I think Wentz clearly has the higher ceiling with probably a lower basement because of how detrimental he can be at times, how negative he can be at times.
Yeah,
but if you get somehow the former out of Carson Wentz, if you get the best out of Carson Wentz, then Washington has a chance to stay in that 7th. Taylor Heineke, I think you know the answer there. And I love the bottom comment. If Wentz doesn't get it done, he's probably gone this season. Like, here's your chance. Because here's the thing. They're not a game and a half out of the 7th, and here comes Wentz to try to get them into playoff. No. You're locked into a spot at the moment. If he's the reason they get knocked out of a spot, he's gone next year. His future in the NFL looks horrible.
Yeah, and I think what kind of got misconstrued during this stretch, and don't get me wrong, like Taylor Heineke was able to get them a string of wins throughout a period of the season here, and it obviously got them into the playoff shape that they're in. But I think it got misconstrued that like the passing game got better with Taylor Heineke. It didn't. Terry McLaurin got more targets. He did better. He had more production with Taylor Heineke. That's true. But everything else went down. Jahan Dotson production went down. Curtis Samuel production went like way down with Taylor Heineke. And you saw what Carson Wentz was doing early part of the season. Now, obviously, you needed him to cut the turnovers. I think that's where the difference was with Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz. But Taylor Heineke had some of those risks that are just like, what the, you know what I mean? Like, what is he doing? Carson Wentz, he has those from time to time as well. But I think, like you said, you get the higher ceiling. He was throwing for 300 yards. He was throwing 2-3 passing touchdowns a game. Now, he did have 2 interceptions or 2 fumbles here and there, whatever the case may be. but you still have more upside there with Carson Wentz. And exactly what you just said. They ran the football more with Taylor Heineke. That's what you have to do with Carson Wentz. You have to be a run-first football team. Exactly what they did to the Eagles on that Monday Night Football game is exactly how the Commanders
But
should
they
play
won't.
every
They
single
won't
game, and they should definitely do that with Carson Wentz. But it's that backup QB syndrome, right?
because he'll come back in and Ron Rivera and that offensive coordinator will drop him back 47 times for no reason, for no apparent look, and the defense will play down. Like the defense was playing at a high level when Heineken came back. And Chase Young's even coming back now. The defense will come back down to earth. Like I remember one of Wentz's last game or earlier on in the season, maybe week 2, week 3, week 4, whenever it was, they played the Detroit Lions. And I mean, my God, they gave up like 27 in the first half to the Lions.
Yeah.
What do you want the offense to do in that standpoint, right? So
yeah, exactly.
It'll be interesting, man. But let's move on to
this comment right here. Can you imagine going from the Raiders, John Gruden, that whole debacle, and then going to the Commanders and working under Dan Snyder? I mean, God damn, that would be the most unlucky career I feel.
It'll be interesting.
Good starting quarterback, right?
It'll be interesting this offseason to look into it with you. What teams need a quarterback? Because I think there's going to be a decent amount of them, and you have the avenue through the draft. You have a couple free agents or trade targets that you could potentially acquire. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, I think.
They got the David Carr connection with the Texans. Maybe he goes down there.
That's
and
true.
walks in
Except
his
the rest of the
brother's
team
shadow.
Is garbage. But...
I know. Yeah, I wouldn't choose to go there. That's for sure.
No. But yeah, man, let's get into our updated Week 17 power rankings here. Yes, I'm looking at these lists next to each other. Very similar, man. Same list, just a little bit different of an order. So instead of going, 10 down to 1, because obviously we have them here on the screen and we have the same top 10. I just kind of run me through your thought process here. 10 down to 1. Obviously I have the Jags one slot ahead than you do. And then we have the Chargers, Vikings, Cowboys, Niners, the same spot. And then we have number 1 the same. So 2 through 4 is flipped around a bit. And 9 and 10 are flip-flops. So just run me through kind of your process here.
Yeah. So honestly, my top 8 didn't change at all this week. I didn't move that around. I didn't move them around at all. You look at the bottom. I'll just start from 10. Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, we're thinking on the same track there. They locked up. Well, not locked up. They put themselves in position where they control their own destiny. That's where I'll go with that. And I do believe they'll end up winning out and beating the Titans next week at the very least. So I love what Jacksonville's doing there. I think not this season. I think the playoff experience is the big thing for Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. Get that duo in the playoffs. Get that experience. Don't think that they're going to make any legitimate noise, quite honestly. But I love what Trevor Lawrence is doing down there. We already talked about a lot of him last week. Him and ETN, the weapons, Calvin Ridley coming back next year. But this is a great first step for your franchise quarterback who is now with what I would lock that duo up, right? For the next 3-4 years, maybe if they can make the playoffs. And then of course they have to do better next year. But in that division, if you left this season right now where it was, who would you pick to win that division next year? Probably the Jaguars, right? Like
it would have to be. Especially, don't forget the addition of Calvin Ridley coming next year.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They get Calvin Ridley. You brought in Christian Kirk. And then you look around the division, Titans, Ryan Tannehill has been bad. Their offensive line is bad. Malik Willis isn't it. You look at the Colts. We already know what's going on at their quarterback position. And then the Texans are the Texans.
They also have the head coach issues down in Indy too.
Exactly. Who's going to be their head coach? Like, yeah, that's actually a great point because I doubt it's going to be Jeff Saturday.
No, you're right, man. No,
better not be. Man.
This is looking to start out to be Jacksonville's division for quite a while. It could ultimately seem like
from the quarterback position, they have it locked down, right?
And head coach.
Then you go, and the head coach. They have the best head coach, I would say, in that division as well. You look at the next one, the Ravens. I know you have them number 10. I feel you because there's uncertainty around Lamar. He hasn't practiced in 11 days, let alone stepped on the football field to play in a game. So I am worried just as far as him not getting any reps before the play. Similar to what we talked about with Jalen Hurts, right? Except Jalen Hurts has an extra week rest and practice he can get in there. Lamar Jackson, I was hoping to see him this week, and I honestly made these rankings on the idea that he would be back this week. Does concern me a good bit that he's not most likely not going to play against Pittsburgh this week. They have locked up a playoff spot nonetheless, so giving them credit where it's due for the 10 wins so far. Somehow, some way, the Ravens got to 10 wins this year, man. And you look at who they've been playing with on their roster, it's kind of astonishing. Really number 8, the Chargers, steady. Like I said, not thoroughly impressed with the Chargers, but nonetheless, they have done enough.
They deserve to be at 8, yeah.
Put enough games together to lock up a playoff spot. Justin Herbert makes them dangerous. I like where the Chargers are at. The top 7, those are, I think you can move those around however you want. I'm sure there's some people that probably moved the Eagles down after the loss to Cal. I think that's a little jumpy for me. They still only have 2 losses, the best record.
A little jumpy. I think it's
with a backup quarterback. Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. The funny thing, while we're talking about it, the Eagles lost to the Cowboys. We know. When you look at this, you hear a lot of Cowboys fans saying that the Cowboys exposed the Eagles because they dropped 40 points on them. Dak played so well. If they exposed the Eagles, that would be saying that the Cowboys have a bad offense. So I don't think that they exposed the Eagles. I think they just had a really good game. The Eagles had a really bad defensive game, and the Cowboys have a good offense, right? But that's not exposing.
I throw some back at you. So the Cowboys exposed the Eagles, who still do not have the interception leader in C.J. Gardner-Johnson back, who will be back by the playoffs, who lost Devontae Maddox in the second quarter, who lost Jordan Davis early on in the game. So they exposed the Eagles defense. Okay, that's fine. That's fair. You want to throw that out there. So then what exactly did the Eagles dropping 34 with their backup quarterback mean? Because that defense, because that pass rush,
the question.
That defense is supposed to be, if they might be better than the Eagles, they have a more ferocious pass rush. So they dropped 40 fully healthy on offense. We dropped 34. Yes, I know. One was a pick 6. We dropped 34 points with a backup quarterback in their house on the road. Third road game in a row. So what is that? What really does exposing mean? Like, Scotty, anyone bumping,
that's what I mean, man.
If anyone removing the Eagles from number 1, that would be like Patrick Mahomes missing a game for Kansas City and they lose by 6. And we're like, well, they're not number 1 anymore, knowing Patrick Mahomes is going to be back in a week or 2. Like, I understand if you have this thought in your head, it's a wrong thought because considering the dude returned to practice today. But if you have this thought in your head where, I don't know, Jalen Hurts is going to be back. Okay, fine. Because for whatever reason, the national media treated this like a season-ending injury. He is most likely going to play this weekend. If he doesn't, he's playing week 18. So what is this notion that the defense got exposed and they have a quarterback issue because the MVP's hurt? It's ludicrous.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was talking about on our last episode, man, where these conversations between Cowboys fans and Eagles fans, it comes from both sides at times, right? Like, I know Eagles fans have their moments as well, but you can't have logical conversations at this point. It's become such a troll-based, rivalry that you can't have conversations about what's actually happening in the game, what actually took place in that game, because at the end of the day, good win, Dallas. Give yourself some credit. Don't say that we got exposed or this and that. Give yourself some credit. CeeDee Lamb's a pretty good player. Dak, Dak his ass when it comes to clutch moments, but he did torch us in that game. He played really good. Give yourself some credit. I think it's a clown move to kind of say that's a bad loss for the Eagles. It's a good.
Well, I think they also forget, Scotty, that they lost to Jacksonville the week prior.
Exactly. And that set the tone coming into this game, making it what it was, right? Maybe Jalen Hurts pushes it to a further extent to get back in that game to play. We don't know. And I think the 49ers are the biggest example of what you were just talking about with the temporary quarterback missing, right? The Eagles quarterback is not on IR. Jimmy Garoppolo is on IR. If Jimmy Garoppolo was not on IR and the 49ers had been on the run that they've been on, the 49ers may be up above the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, maybe even the Bengals if they had their starting quarterback. I know everybody's on the Brock Purdy train. I'm not there yet with a permanent backup starting quarterback, right? Brock Purdy is locked in. I saw talk about Jimmy G coming back in like the divisional round or the conference round of the play.
Why
That's
would you even do that?
ridiculous.
Why would you
That's
even do that?
stupid, especially if Brock Purdy gets you that far, right? Like,
Especially because
no
it's
way you
Jimmy
do that.
G. Like,
That too, yeah. Like, why
it
bring
ain't
him
the
back in the
MVP
moments where he
missing and
has
he can
failed?
come back. Like, no, it's one mediocre quarterback to a third string mediocre quarterback, and that story, this story is awesome. I don't know, man. I don't know what you. I would. What's how big of an issue was a plumber needed for D-Rab? Was
Oh man, got a
but no,
Cowboys
I
fan
agree with
plumber
you.
in Florida.
Ultimately, I look at the Jags in Baltimore at 9-10, and I really don't have any argument to flip flop them. Other than I think that the Jags, to me, are trending in a more positive direction in terms of health and in terms of the way their quarterback and head coach are dialing things up right now. They're dominant, man. Like they went into New York, and albeit Zach Wilson was a train wreck, and then they put in this kid that was sitting on his couch 2 hours before the opening kickoff, but they took care of business in New York in bad weather. And Baltimore continues to win games with a backup quarterback and a third string quarterback, but I don't know. They just have a worry to me, right? Chargers, I agree. I think 8 is the perfect slot for them. They don't deserve to be below the Jags or the Ravens, but they're not in the tier, of the top 7.
Yeah.
And then I ultimately, like you said, I think you get to San Fran, Dallas, Minnesota. I think those 3 are in perfect order right there. And the team that can slide up is San Francisco, but I'm not a Brock Purdy guy like yourself. Our only difference, you have the Chiefs at 4, I have the Chiefs at 2. Ultimately, it's just kind of like you said with probably why you have the Bengals at 2 and the Bills still at 3, right? I had the Chiefs at 2 last week. They won the game.
Yeah.
Really can't punish them, right? You had the Bengals at 2 last week, won the game, can't really punish them. So I would agree with
maybe
you.
It may get a toss up this week with the Bengals taking on the Bills.
That's going to be fun, man.
It's going to be an exciting one.
For what
Monday
we lack
night.
in Thursday night football tonight, we gain in Monday night football this week. So
what I will say, looking at both of these, and let me ask you this, because I don't know, I call the top 7 legitimate contenders out of like respect. I try not to be biased. I try not to be disrespectful towards what these teams have done this season, but we have the Cowboys and the Vikings in the same exact spot, 6 and 7. So they're in the top 7 and they're separated from the Chargers. But I have to say, man, I'm just not a true believer. Like when I say that there's 7 contenders, I don't really mean it, honestly. I just shouldn't say something I don't mean, right? So I'm wondering if you're feeling the same way there, right? The top 5, you can move them all around the way you want. But none of those bottom 5 teams I feel are in the same ball field. Now we'll see, what Dallas can do if they get a mangled Bucks team, right? They are getting Ryan Jensen back as the center, so maybe that makes a big difference. You never know with chemistry like that. But get the Bucks, Tom Brady, they'll be at home. Obviously, the Cowboys will be on the road if everything plays out the way it's supposed to. Vikings end up getting the Giants or the Commanders right now, maybe
7.
Lions
So
or
right now they're sitting against Washington or Green Bay or
Washington.
Detroit potentially. So
and then San Fran against New York. So
I
I look at the Vikings. Do I think they would lose to the Commanders in the first round? No. But is there a chance? I would say yes, there is a chance they could lose to the Commanders in the first round. And I would say if there is a chance that you would lose in the first round as a number 2 seed, I can't say that I think of you as a contender, right?
Can I give you a thought that is really starting to bother my mind? So last week, what percentage did I give the Green Bay Packers to make the playoffs?
0.
Yeah. And they've only won 1 game. They have to win out, right? And they still need some help. So I still don't like their chances to make the playoffs. But since we're talking 2 versus 7 matchup and the Minnesota Vikings potentially being fraudulent, if my prediction at 0% was wrong for the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers slides into the 17th, the Minnesota Vikings are losing that 2-7 matchup.
Yeah. They lose this weekend, right? And Aaron Rodgers, because they play this weekend in Green Bay. They lose this weekend, open that door for Aaron Rodgers. That'll be the worst mistake that they ever made, man. Yeah. I'm telling you. So they better come out and play
you better handle your business this week, or else you're going to be seeing them again in 2 weeks, and you don't want that.
I know Vikings fans are confident, but come on, you can't say that you want Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Like if it was the
That's
Eagles
like me
versus the
saying I want
Packers,
Tampa Bay. I don't want to I'll play Tampa Bay.
right,
I'm confident.
right.
I don't want to play Tom in the first round. That's just
And
that's
this
just
is a team that knows you. This isn't Aaron Rodgers versus the Eagles or Aaron Rodgers versus the Cowboys. This is Aaron Rodgers and the Packers that have been playing against the Vikings since before Aaron Rodgers.
Agreed.
Since Aaron Rodgers entered the league. So, I'm with you there. It is a little dicey and a little sketchy there for them. But yeah, I don't know. I look at the top 5 and I just think there's a little bit of difference in level. And I will say the Cowboys, I had them right there. I had them right there until the hiccups against the Jags, the close call against the Texans. That is what really crept into my head. And it's kind of like this. Now, the Cowboys aren't in this category. The Vikings, that's where I'm at with the Vikings. They play every game so close. And if not, they're getting blown out. It's not them blowing anybody out. It's them getting blown out in the 2 losses that they've had, right? Every win is like a nail biter or them coming back in the fourth quarter. And it's not to say that doesn't give you experience through adversity.
Fourth quarter comes back.
Right. And that's
comebacks this season.
That's a good experience to have under your belt. I do believe that.
But don't go to the
but it opens the door. It opens the door. Look at the Sixers, for example. And I know this is totally off base. They have those 3 games in a row where they give up a double-digit deficit. They're down by 10, 10 or more early on in the first half.
They come back.
2 times you're able to come back against the Wizards. The 3rd time's that charm. You fall apart. You're not able to put it together. And that could be that one time in the playoffs where that happens. And that's what worries me with the Vikings. I know Vikings fans are confident in their team. I know that Justin Jefferson can go nuclear at any time, and that can change an entire game. And I'm not taking that away, but I have seen them lose with Justin Jefferson going nuclear, right? Like, so that's where I'm at. You play
Justin Jefferson be taken out of a game twice this year.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they played a close one with the New York Giants. That's a potential matchup, right? If things don't fall, if they lose to if they lose to the Packers this weekend, what happens between them and the 49ers if they have the same amount of losses? I'd have to look into all of that. But nonetheless, it's something to think about here, man.
Yeah, so maybe they don't even end up with the 2 seed, right? Maybe that happens and Green Bay gets San Fran in the first week and the Vikings luck out and get the Cowboys possibly. I don't know. It could work out that way. So not the Cowboys, excuse me, the Giants at the
the
6th seed. Yeah, man, I think that's it power rankings wise. I think we agree on a lot of stuff here. You have your Cincinnati's and Buffalo's, but there's not a lot to discuss because we're literally going to watch them square up Monday night. So
those are the cream of the crop, right?
Afterwards.
Exactly. Those are the cream of the crop. You talk about the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills. Those are the cream of the crop of the NFL. If you have a disagreement with my top 5, I'm not going to argue with you.
Right. We probably just won't agree on much else in life either. Like if
yeah, exactly. Maybe if we disagree on the top 1, maybe we can have an argument. But top 5 altogether, I have no complaints.
I agree with you. All right, man. To wrap up the show, man, this sucks. we don't have a best bet. We don't have blazing this game.
I don't want to tell people to go put their money on this game and then lose money.
Not at all, because I don't know what to expect. Do I get Dak Prescott 300 yards and running the score up tonight, or do I get Dak Prescott only throws for 140 and doesn't need to play the fourth quarter?
Right.
I mean, I'm just going to simply watch and pray and hope for a Christmas and New Year's miracle that Josh Dobbs at home can beat the Dallas Cowboys. That would that would
be insane, man.
You want to talk about making my Thursday. But no, it's not happening. If I had to give you a prediction, I think the Cowboys win this one easily. The Tennessee's playing nobody defensively. They're all banged up. No Derrick Henry. Tannehill on the IR, out for the season. They skip by Malik Willis. They head on over. I don't know why did they skip over Malik Willis? They just went straight to Josh Dobbs.
I really don't know the
kid you drafted in the first round. Like you just skipped over him. I don't know.
They're trying to keep everybody healthy for next week, so I don't know if maybe because Ryan Tannehill's going on IR, they just didn't want to risk Malik Willis. Even maybe. I don't know.
Possibly. But Yeah, I like the Cowboys in this one. No Tony Pollard for them, so I haven't looked at the lines if I'm being 100% with you, but maybe an Ezekiel Elliott anytime touchdown scorer, maybe a
It was
CeeDee Lamb.
minus 175 for
Yeah,
Zeke
well, that's
anytime
not worth
touchdown.
taking. So
No juice, right? So
right.
that's the kicker there. With no Tony Pollard, the odds went down on Zeke there. The one thing I did lay, I told you about it earlier, $50 max bet, but
I do like that.
200 plus for Dak and a Cowboys win at
I
plus
do like
100.
that.
That's a FanDuel boost they got
I'll
going.
throw you a
I
touchdown
do
score.
think the Dallas Cowboys, you know how they do, man, and they do in a sense still have something to play for. I think they'll come out. I'm not like taking the over in this game. I don't think that they'll score 35 or anything like that. But I do think Dak will be able to do what he wants through the air because we've seen what the Titans' pass defense looks like.
Noah Brown anytime touchdown scored tonight is one prop that I'm going to look into that I potentially like. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't have anything for you on this game.
You could honestly, Noah Brown's a good one. You could honestly take probably any of the receivers.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz is probably a good one.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb's another good one. The odds are probably down on Lamb to an extent, but can't touch the spread here. It's minus 14 the last time I checked it. I'm not touching that. I was looking at Tennessee total in the game. They're at over under is 13.5 points. I'm not touching that.
No.
So yeah,
it's man, right? We saw the Houston Texans take the Cowboys and the Chiefs to the brink the last couple weeks. So you never know with these large spreads.
Let me give you some NBA props tonight.
Go ahead, throw them out there.
I got a couple collected. I'm trying to do it every night here. Yeah, 2-1, man. We did pretty well. I laid a few others that I mentioned on the show as well. Tonight we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over 6.5 assists at plus 100. So I love the plus money there. Paul George over 6.5 rebounds at plus 103. Love that in a big matchup with the Celtics. The next one, Darius Garland over 2.5 threes was at plus 120. He just had a big game earlier this week.
Yeah.
So I think he's getting on the right track there. So I really love those odds. And then I took LaMelo Ball at over 3.5 threes. That was for minus 126. LaMelo Ball, he shoots a hell of amount of threes, but little NBA action before we get into the Sixers.
I might tell you, man. I'm either going to lay a Noah Brown anytime tutty, or I might go with SGA or that Paul George prop. I'll have to see.
SGA is always a fun one, man. Yeah. Check out the Celtics and Clippers game. That's a fun one tonight, man.
All right. I like it. But anyway, guys, that is going to wrap up this Thursday edition of NFL Turf Talk here on DSM Media. Guys, don't forget to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. You can check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on: IG, TikTok, Facebook, Twitch. And then obviously don't forget to hit the big one. Subscribe to the DSM Media YouTube channel. We're very, very close to our 700th subscriber. So obviously we'd be very, very grateful for that. And it's the best place also to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up and be interactive with all the shows. We love interacting with you guys. It makes it a lot more fun. It makes the conversations a lot more interesting each and every show. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM Media, have a great rest of your Thursday.
Go Bird.
One-on-one.